Damn, I am kind of depressed. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. I want to talk to you about something that's making me a bit depressed. The Grand Tour is over. And if you're feeling a weird sense of loss right now, you are not alone. Let me tell you why saying goodbye to Clarkson, Hammond, and May feels like so much more than just the end of a TV show to me. You probably know this because I've said it many times. I grew up in Detroit, the Motor City. And when I was growing up, my family, we didn't have a lot of extra money. My dad was a hardworking guy, but a fun weekend car wasn't part of the picture in my family. But what I did have was Woodward Avenue. And if you don't know Woodward, it's a stretch of road kind of legendary for cruising. The occasional drag race might break out. Guys would often drive there showing off their machines that they had spent years building. And on a warm summer evening, I would just go stand there and watch, sometimes by myself, sometimes with a buddy. And car after car would go rumbling by, shinier, more powerful, more rare than the last one. Every few minutes, my jaw would just drop. And there's something about that experience that's hard to put into words because it wasn't about money. It wasn't about status or dominating your neighborhood. For me, it was about seeing what happens when someone puts their blood, sweat, and tears into something they love, and then that thing comes to life. And you get to feel the rumble of it. You get to feel yourself being propelled down the open road into a perfect golden hour sunset with your favorite song jamming on the radio. It's not just a hobby. It's the whole feeling that you get from it. And there's a certain kind of car person that just gets that feeling. And no matter who they are or where they're from, I just really connect with them. And the Top Gear guys were kind of like that to me. I don't know about you, but I loved watching Top Gear through the years, hell, through the decades, which is kind of crazy. It almost hadn't dawned on me how old the original hosts have gotten just because I've been aging right there alongside of them. But when I see those old episodes from the 80s and 90s, I go back and watch some review about a classic car now that I still really love. Golly, they were so much older. The image quality isn't great by today's standards, but the production value was always extraordinary. And that intro, that high-pitched synthetic opening music, a little dated now, but it still gets me every single time. But it's really the authenticity of what those guys did. That's the hardest thing to earn. You can't fake it, and you certainly can't sustain it over decades if it's not real. Those guys trusted each other, and trust like that is built over years and years. Years and years of showing up and being consistently, genuinely you. People who fake it get burned out. They can't keep it up. That's why so many social media influencers, in my opinion, that try to craft the life that they think people want to see that isn't really theirs, eventually implode. You can only pretend for so long. They felt like friends, like guys living their best life, driving cars that I could only dream of, experiencing things that I could never be able to afford. But I got the pleasure of living vicariously through them. The jokes, the chemistry, the way they bust each other's chops seemed like three good friends just getting together, hanging out, sharing their love of cars while the camera was rolling. Not three hired guns hosting a job. That's magic, and it's super, super rare. So when you find it, I think viewers like me really appreciate it. Commercial broadcasters appreciate it. But most of all, the fans appreciate it, and they stick with them. The humor, the seriousness, the absolute wackiness of it all. It all felt real because I think it is real. So when their time on Top Gear ended, I was genuinely heartbroken, and I thought, that's it. They'll take their money and run off into the sunset, retire, maybe just hang out by themselves, spend more time with their family, do all the things that they always wanted to do but never got a chance. God knows I would have. But when they came back for the Grand Tour, dude, I was over the moon. Despite it being a little different, I realized it wasn't the format of the show that I was in love with. It was following these guys, these dudes, learning about their lives, watching them evolve, and just like good influencers who expand beyond their main channel, guys like Mr. Beast who turned one success into an empire, Clarkson, Hammond, and May did the same thing. Clarkson's farm, their business ventures, gin distilleries, pubs. I watched all those videos, visiting each other on camera and off. I loved every freaking minute of it. And it was even more immersive. It felt like being invited into their actual lives, not just watching a show where they talked about cars. It was watching friendships unfold and develop in real time. And here's the thing that really showed me how genuine they were. It was how friendly they were with the fans. Listen, I am not a big celebrity person, but I do get a little giddy around people I admire. Hell, I once saw Brian Tong, the Apple Bites host, in line for something in Los Angeles. I immediately lined up right behind him. I don't even know what it was for. And I just wanted to say, hey, I love your work. And he was super nice about it. And we ended up talking for like 20 minutes. He was just a dude. And he was just the guy that I knew from on screen. That's how I feel about Clarkson, Hammond, and May. They're mega stars, massive stars, but they still show up to car shows. I remember seeing footage of Jeremy's birthday party with some random British car guys there or some car club. And he never showed disgust or disdain for the fans. None of these guys ever acted like they left us behind 30 years ago. That tells you who they are at their core. Almost the same people they were at the beginning, which is unfathomable, really. Almost everyone else would be changed by money and fame. But these guys were still fundamentally the same good people who could be honest without putting up the facade. So just like those guys on Woodward who poured everything they had into something they loved and just wanted to share it with someone else, that's who I saw in these guys. So I loved the Grand Tour. One of my favorite episodes, honestly, was the one where they went on the boat trip to Vietnam and Cambodia. These guys crammed into vessels that had absolutely no business being on open water. They got soaked, they broke down, they lost their minds, and somehow, impossibly, they were laughing and having a great time the whole way. And I remember watching and thinking, man, I want to be there. Not as a viewer, as the fourth guy, the fourth host, the one that nobody talks about in the press, but somehow always gets in the middle of it, making some dumb jokes or getting picked on and hopefully giving it right back. That's the thing about those three. The trust between them is so lived in, so effortless that watching them feels less like an entertainment show and more like just being led into some sort of private hangout. I assume it's a friendship that took decades to build among them, and it absolutely shows through. And I think that's why it hits me so deep, because most of us have had that group or dreamed about having it. Friends that you'd call at midnight, friends that you'd follow into a terrible idea just because they were going. The kind of trips you talked about as kids that we still talk about as adults, and somehow they never quite take. Life gets in the way, money, time, the slow, grinding realities of daily life that turn the we should do that someday conversations into the silent moments that we don't say out loud anymore because the reality is we know they're never going to happen. But when I did get a chance to watch Clarkson, Hammond, and May thunder down that river on some barely floating disaster of a boat, I could almost taste those adventures. Taste the ones with them. Obviously, the adventure they're on, but also the adventures that I dreamed of with my best friends that we'll probably never do. It was like watching the version of life where you just go, where you just do stuff, where you figure it out as you go along, where the suffering becomes the story and the story becomes the thing that you'd never trade. They lived it, and for a little while watching them, so did all of us. And so when the Grand Tour finally came to an end, God, I was heartbroken. I knew it was going to happen eventually. And in some ways, I can't believe they did it for as long as they did. The typical Top Gear studio episodes are one thing. You're close to family. But those adventure specials, you're away from home for weeks, I assume. That's tough as you get older. And I appreciate that they kept doing it because I don't know if I could. But then here's where I was elated and then depressed. I saw a story that the Grand Tour was coming back, and I did a double take because a big part of me doesn't want that chapter, the Top Gear chapter, the Grand Tour chapter, the Three Amigos chapter, whatever it is, to end. It's been a part of my life for almost my entire life. Them stepping aside, stepping away from the camera was like saying goodbye to Paul Walker, which killed a little piece of me right here too. Another guy who loved cars, who felt genuine, whose fan base was well-earned and well-deserved. And you just don't want to think about those things coming to an end, especially when you've become so invested in what they're doing. But my excitement, as I mentioned, was short-lived. As I read the article, I realized the Grand Tour was coming back, but with 3 new hosts. And then I came across a video of Clarkson going through some resumes, picking new hosts, being irreverent about it, of course, acting like he's selecting them based on some ridiculous criteria, doing it in that classic Clarkson way where you can't tell if he's being serious or he's actually pissing on you. But as always, it's a funny video. I've watched it a few times. But that video in particular hit me like a bucket of cold water because that was it. That was the passing of the torch right there on the screen. Not a dramatic farewell episode, not a tearful send-off video, just Jeremy Clarkson flipping through resumes like he's hiring someone to mow his lawn, handing over something that meant the world to millions, I assume, tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of people, including me. And somehow the casualness of it made it even harder for me, like running into an ex and realizing that they've already moved on. And look, I think the show can be successful and I want it to be successful and I will probably watch it. One generation hands off to another. A new generation of car fans like my son who's never watched Top Gear will find their own tribe to latch onto. They'll benefit from the runway that these guys made. I hope it's successful. I hope there's chemistry. Amazon's probably done their due diligence, but I'll tell you this, they didn't reach out to me, so only partial due diligence at least. But listen, a part of me, maybe a large part of me, is jealous because I'd give my left nut for that job, because I don't even see it as a job. I just see it as having fun and having a camera there while you're doing it. But the point is here, seeing that my 3 favorite hosts were not going to come back just reinforced something that is not sitting well with me. It is really over. It's a well-deserved retirement. It was an amazing career, longer than I think anyone anticipated, longer than I expected, and it has to come to an end sometime, but it makes me a little wistful. It makes me think about my own friendships and relationships in real life that have lasted as long, how lucky I am to have them. And even though I don't know Clarkson, Hammond, or May personally, even though we've never met, never will, having them retire and not seeing them on a regular basis, man, it does feel like saying goodbye to old friends. So maybe for me, it goes back to that kid that was standing on Woodward Avenue, watching something beautiful and majestic and muscular roll by, being in awe, and also just grateful that he got to see it. I didn't own those cars. I didn't get to keep them. But in that moment, it was mine, at least that experience. And to me, saying goodbye to that kid, that part of me, that experience, those friends, there's no other way to say it, but it kind of sucks. Did Top Gear or the Grand Tour mean something more to you than just a car show? Did you feel a connection to these guys? Did you feel like their actual retirement was some sort of personal loss? Because knowing we're not alone in this, that we all shared this experience together, even though we may not actually be together, makes it a little bit easier to say goodbye, because we're not doing it alone. We're doing it together. And maybe that's the legacy they left us. Peter Von Panda, out.
These mist-covered mountains are a home now for me, but my home is the lowlands, and always will be. Someday you'll return to your valleys and your farms, and you'll no longer burn to be brothers in
I think that's it. That is it. There's our tree.
It just remains for me to say thank you very, very much for watching. Thank you. Means a lot.